Hello, everyone. I'm Maria Fuentes, and welcome to my new podcast. I have a background in medicine, in public health, and in research. However, when I became a runner about 5 years ago, I realized that there was so much information in the world of running that I had absolutely no idea about. I realized that in order to become a better runner, but also to prevent injuries, you had to learn a lot about strength training, about the different types of runs, about different types of paces. You have to learn about fueling properly, the necessary macros or micronutrients, the different types of runs, the different types of shoes. It's a whole world out there that you have to learn to become a better runner and also to prevent injuries, which is the most important thing I believe in this to be able to sustain this amazing sport of running. So this information and this podcast is dedicated for you. Especially, it's going to be dedicated for new runners that are beginning to run. Sometimes they reach out, they ask me questions, and I can share a lot of information, but there's like a lot of things that I also I'm still learning. So part of this podcast, I'm going to share part of my experience, but also I'm going to be talking, inviting new experts and to be guests of this show and asking them questions about running and how to get you started in this amazing sport. Oh, all right. So make sure to subscribe, to follow me on my Instagram, my YouTube, so you can go ahead and listen to all of this amazing information that is coming up just for you. All right. Thank you guys. Have a good day. Okay, hello everyone. So I'm Maria and I'm very happy to be an ambassador for the 2025 El Paso Marathon coming up next February 23rd. And I guess my goal as an ambassador is be able to help new runners have a good experience. They don't suffer so much, dreading that moment of the race, but actually come prepared for the race, have a good experience, become like confident to looking forward to it, feel strong and feel confident, have like a good experience, right? So for that, I think it's very important to pass out information, proper education on how to base building, how to feel properly, and different strategies and techniques for new runners, to make sure that they have that solid final good race at the end. So today I invited Coach Chris Knighton from the Knightonruns. I have his book right here with me. He's the author of Run Faster Marathons, The Proven Path to PR, and my coach for the past 2 years. So I want to be able to ask him to join me and ask a couple of questions. Okay, so just to introduce you very quickly to Chris, he is a USA field and NF, I'm sorry, a certified running coach. He's based in Providence, Rhode Island, and he's an amazing runner. I think they just set like a PR for 440 something in a recent. He has helped over 100 athletes get their PRs, get their BQs, and have like a very good races and outcomes at the end. So hi, Chris. How are you?
Hey, Maria, thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm very happy to be here and speaking to everyone who's interested in running the El Paso Marathon. I know that I helped you train for your first marathon, so if anyone's watching this and you are getting ready for your first marathon in El Paso, hopefully this will be really helpful for you as well.
No, thank you so much. And I have to say that I think the most that I've learned from you is that I get from you is how to train properly throughout the year, right? Not you're not gonna be like in your best condition all the year, but how to, take it slow, how to when to take some time off, when it's time for base building, when it's time for speed workout. So actually train like athletes do, like a formal athlete, right? So I love that I've learned so much from you. So can you talk a little bit to us more about, your experience as a runner, coaching, and of course, an items?
Yeah, so I started my business, Knightonruns Marathon Coaching, in 2019, and I actually never really ran when I was younger. I didn't do it in high school. I didn't do it in college, but I picked it up in my mid 20s because I was living in Boston and I had these fond memories of a kid of watching the Boston Marathon. And as someone in my 20s in Boston, the marathon there is such a big deal. I mean, people go to it every year and watch it. It's one of the funnest weekends in the city in Boston. And I just wanted to see if I could run a marathon. I think for so many folks, it's this at first this like huge challenge and this accomplishment that people just want to test themselves and see if they can do it. And like many of those probably listening to this, I wanted to figure that out for myself. So I started running in my mid 20s, really just kind of making it up as I went. I didn't really know what I was doing. Um, but then when I decided to take my running more seriously and actually train for my first marathon to attempt to qualify for Boston and ultimately run Boston, that's when I decided to hire a running coach to teach me how to train the right way. And that was really my first introduction into training like an athlete and doing things correctly, rather than just kind of making it up on the fly. I had really no background in sports before that. And I really enjoyed the experience. I had a ton of fun. Um, I have a professional background in education in engineering and math. And so the development of training plans and the math side of it really resonated with me. But I also really enjoyed the process of working with my coach, and I found that relationship to be really powerful. And I found that I was much more motivated to train hard and do well when I was working with her than when I was just kind of doing my own thing. So I ultimately started to do a little coaching on the side of my old job in engineering, and slowly was growing that over time as more and more people joined up with me and wanted to team up with me and have them be my athlete. And then in 2021, I got to a position where I was able to start coaching full time. So that was really exciting for me. I've always wanted to run my own business and be self-employed and do my own thing. And for the past 3 years, I've been really able to just focus on my running coaching business, helping athletes like Maria and building out educational content like my book Maria mentioned. And I do a whole lot of different things on my website as well. So uh, I also have a podcast that I haven't updated in a while, but I might come back to it at some day. I got like 85 episodes on there, I think, all about marathon training and both from a physical perspective and the mental perspective of getting ready for your race. So that's a little bit about me and how I got into doing this. And yeah, let's get into the questions. How can we help these folks
Awesome.
listening?
So, and I think that having a coach, that I always like, it's one of the advices that I always tell like new runners. If you can hire yourself a coach that you have like a good connection with, it's like it's so worth it because you're investing in yourself and you're investing for something that is gonna stay for you for a long time. So I'm always telling you, if you can
Mhm.
hire a coach, that's like the best investment you can do for yourself on having like proper coaching, right?
Yeah.
It's very easy, I think, to go through social media and see what others are doing and get crazy and excited and oh, I want to do that. I want to do that, but there's not really a plan. And that's when actually we fall a prey of getting injured and not
Hmm.
really having like a strategy and things start going a little bit wrong for us, right? So
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Can I mention one other thing? I
Yeah, of
just
course.
following up on that. So, uh, also just about me. So I started coaching high school as well, and I coach a high school girls team,
True.
track and field and cross country, and this is our fourth year going into that, and that's been really great. It's been a good supplement to the adult coaching that I do mostly for marathoners. And to get to your point, Maria, about like the value of having a coach, you know, when I work with these high school kids, I work with them every single day for like 4 years. I really shape them into the person and athlete that they are. And it's a great thing. I really enjoy doing it. Um, but with adult athletes, like kind of like you were saying, and like I was mentioning with my story, I didn't have an athletic background. And I would say most of the people I coach don't really have much of an athletic background either. So working with a coach in your later in life, it's really a great way to learn these fundamentals of training like an athlete. Because yeah, you can go out and run. Certainly, most people do
Yeah.
that, but it's a world of difference when you're going about things the right way and you're thinking about it more long term and want to make sure that you're doing the right thing. So yeah, it's let's get into the questions. But
Awesome. Okay,
yeah,
so I have five easy questions that I think it will be like the basic for for new runners. A lot of people come to me. I'm like, okay, I want to sign up, but how do I start? Sometimes I
hmm
don't know how to tell them, right? I tell them, okay, go start running, maybe a
yep,
little bit, and start kind
yep,
of like alternating. But of course, like I want like proper education and information for them.
hmm
So that's kind of like the question number one. So how do I start? Where do I start? Like that's very easy.
sure. So, are we assuming a brand new runner here?
I let's just say a brand new runner. I run my first half marathon. And how do I start? Maria, how do I start? So
Yeah.
Chris, help me with that.
Yeah, okay. That's a great question. I think I can give a pretty straightforward answer, but keep in mind everyone's going to be coming from a different background, with their current level of fitness and some things that's going to play into this is athletic background you may or may not have, to some extent your age, but not so much there. Just in general, how fit do you think you are? I would say most folks when they get started running 3 to 4 days per week would be good.
Okay.
Let's just say like every other day, or
Okay.
maybe even somebody who is a little bit older, a little bit less in shape, and thinks the recovery time might be longer. Maybe run once every third day. So 1 day run, 2 days rest, 1 day run. But don't feel like you need to start running every single day early on. The first thing you would want to do is work to build consistency of running 3 to 4 days per week. And what should that look like? I think a great first goal is I think new runners would do well to think about running for time more than distance necessarily, because everyone's pace is going to be a little bit different. Um, but let's say in the first month, like let's try to get you comfortable running 30 minutes at a time. For some folks, 30 minutes might be 2.5 miles. For some folks, it might be 4 miles. But let's get you comfortable running 30 minutes. The first week, I would honestly just go out and run 10 to 15 minutes at a time that first week,
Okay.
every other day. Keep it very comfortable. And that's one of the most common mistakes new runners make is they run they run hard
Okay.
when they're just starting to run. But when you're starting to run, it really should be comfortable. You should think about it more as jogging than running when you're just starting. A good rule of thumb to make sure that you're not running too hard is you should be able to actually hold a conversation with a friend while you're running. And I think, again, for most new runners, this is going to feel a lot slower than they think they should be going. But for new runners, the most important thing is not your speed or your intensity. It's all about building that consistency of just getting out there, running comfortably, and then slowly building that over time. So I would say do a week or two of running 10 to 15 minutes every other day. Then the next week, if you feel like that was too easy, bump that up about 5 minutes or so. So then maybe you're running 15 to 20 minutes, bump that up again the following week, and then bump that up again. So maybe after about a month, you're running 30 minutes at a time. You can,
Perfect. Okay.
yeah, and you can slow that process down or speed it up based on your ability level. But in general, being conservative with how much you're doing and running less is going to be better than adding mileage or adding time too quickly. That's generally how people end up getting hurt or having setbacks. So it's better to do less than more when you're just starting out.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think that's like the most common, I don't want to say mistake. We always think of beginning to run and like that means like running out of breath, like running my
hmm
hardest like all the time, when it's actually like slowing down and finding your rhythm, right? Like finding your pace easy, that you're be able to have that conversation and you actually enjoy it. It's not like
Yeah.
that you're suffering throughout the process, right?
Yeah.
So all right, so perfect. So begin, and I like that. Begin with time rather than distance, because sometimes we
Yep.
put the distance and you can see like that can be like a daunting, oh gosh, you mean 2 miles? So that can be like something that looks like too much for to begin with to
hmm
for a person.
Yep. And I would even
Awesome.
I would even say for new runners, there's no need to rush and get a GPS watch and measure your pace and all that stuff.
Okay.
Just get out there and just run for time at the beginning, you know? Um, you can use any old watch for that, and don't worry about how fast or how slow you're going. Just build that
Okay.
consistency, and then once you've built that, you can grow from there.
Awesome. I love that. Thank you so much for that. All right. So the number two question will be, so I know you put in your book, right? We have like
Hmm.
different phases for marathon training. So can you talk to us about that? So what are the phases for marathon training?
Yeah. So I came up with this concept of the 6 phases of marathon training. And at a high level, these are phases you're going to go through over the course of 4 to 6 months as you prepare for your marathon and then recover after your marathon. Maria, you mentioned earlier in this conversation that when we train to be our best, we're not trying to be in our best shape at all times of the year. And that's absolutely right. If you want to run your best marathon, you can really only run 2 or 3 per year and be in your best shape. And that's because it takes about 4 to 6 months to allow yourself to go through these phases of training and get into your best shape.
And if I may interrupt that, I think that like a common thing, you start running and you start like registering like in every single race that you see. And later on, you're like, no, I love that with you right now. Okay, so select a plan for the year. What are you gonna run? This is gonna be your marathon phase, and this is gonna be this half marathon. So you become like more selective as you learn. So yeah, that's good as well.
Yeah. So for those running the El Paso Marathon in February, they should probably be starting their training. Um, I mean, I
Now,
guess now, September. So like September, October, November, December,
or
Feb
January.
January, February. So we're already like 6 months away. So now through, I would say November, you kind of want to be getting started. And newer runners should get started sooner because you're going to want more time to build up. But yeah, you think about going through these 6 phases of training over the course of the next 6 months. The first phase is what I call the base building phase of training. And this is kind of what I was just talking about, where you're not focused on running fast at all. You're just focusing on building up your capacity to run for an extended period of time. So, someone taking on a marathon, I would hope that you're able to run more than 30 minutes when you're just getting started. Uh, Otherwise, marathon's going to be a tough challenge. But in the base building phase, you really want to be increasing your mileage per week. I would say you'd probably want if you can start running 30 mi sorry, if you could start running like 30 minutes a day, maybe in the base building phase, you try to build that up so you're running closer to like 45 or 60 minutes per day in the base building phase of training. And if we're thinking about miles, I mean, this could vary dramatically depending on the runner, but you basically want to increase your mileage so you're running as much as you can safely during this base building phase of training, but you're not focusing on speed. You're just building your consistency and setting yourself up to in the future be able to layer in faster workouts and longer long runs and more specific elements of your training that's going to get you ready to do the marathon.
But the base building process then it's actually can takes longer, right? Like it's kind of like a foundation before actually start building up for the
Yeah.
race.
Yeah. So I mean the base building phase could be as long as you want it to be. I would say for a brand new runner, it would be great if you were running for like I probably wouldn't recommend doing a marathon in your first year of running. I would probably spend your first year of running training, maybe you could do a half marathon. Maybe at the end of that first year of running, you do a half marathon. And then after you've done that half marathon, maybe in your second year of running, you could progress that and go further and do a full marathon. The base building phase is really just a dedicated phase of training where you're focusing on expanding your capacity to run far, but run at a comfortable pace. Um, and if we look at, say, like a 18-week training program for a marathon, usually the first 4 to 6 weeks of that are going to be what I call base building. And this is just easy running, maybe some very light simple workouts, but they're not the focus. And everyone should go through this at the beginning of a marathon training cycle, regardless of their experience level. Um, but newer athletes, especially, should think about building their base for as long as possible before they take on, a big challenge like the marathon.
Okay, awesome. And that's gonna like probably make you like a stronger runner and be prepared like for that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
More.
Yep. The base building phase, when you're just focusing on running comfortable, but as much as you can, you're gonna strengthen your muscles, your bones, your cardiovascular system. Um, you're gonna get a lot fitter. Base building is probably 75% of what it takes to become the best runner you can be. That extra 25% is all the little things that we're going to get into in the future phases of training, like speed development, endurance training, tapering, mindset, all that sort of stuff. But the longer you can build your base, that's the foundation that everything else is built upon.
So you want to make sure to invest your time and spend a lot of time having that proper base building process, right?
Yep.
Awesome. So we began with base building, then we move on to speed, I believe.
Yep. So with marathon training, the next phase I like to focus on with my athletes, I call it speed development. So this is so something to think about when training for any race, whether it's a 5K or a marathon. The closer you get to the day of your race, the more specific your training should become to what that race is going to require. So if it's something like a 5K, you're going to be able to have to run 3 miles very fast. So when training for a 5K, I do a lot of speed training close to the 5K. But when training for the marathon is not so much a test of speed. It's more a test of endurance, or what we would call your speed, this is a confusing term, your speed endurance, where you're going as fast as you can, but it's the endurance component to the marathon that allows you to run your best one. So as you get closer to the marathon, you start to do more marathon specific runs, like long runs and marathon paced running. Marathon paced running is relatively slow. But it's endurance building. So the second phase of marathon training is what I call speed development. This is when you are still quite a bit of ways away from your marathon. You want to try to do speed improving workouts, so short and fast workouts that are going to get you as fast as possible in the time that you have before you start to get closer to your marathon and you need to transition to really doing endurance focused training. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And now I understand my plan that you give me.
Athletes can really only focus on one thing at a time. You can either focus on endurance or you can focus on speed.
Okay.
Base building is primarily focusing on endurance. Then we go to speed development. You're primarily focusing on speed because you do want to focus on both over the course of a year. But then as we get closer to the marathon and we move into the race specific quality phase, again, we're getting back to endurance. So we want to make sure we shift back and forth throughout the course of training. But yeah, once you come out of that base building phase, that's when you should be doing short and fast workouts. What these workouts should look like, they're going to be a lot faster than marathon pace. So things like 5K paced intervals. If you like to run on a track, these could be track intervals like 400, 800 meters. They could be things like fast fartlek. So like running 1 minute on at a hard pace, 1 minute recovery, and repeating that for so many miles or so many minutes. Really, they're going to be workouts that are a lot faster than marathon pace that are going to help try to get you faster in the time that you have so that then your marathon pace becomes a lot more comfortable in comparison because you've been running faster previous to that. And hopefully you're going to take advantage of this phase by getting a little bit faster so that you can hopefully run a faster marathon than you could have had you not gone through this process.
Awesome. All right. So at the beginning is base building, work on those easy miles, and later on, as it gets closer, that's when you start kind of like adding more specific targeted pace work.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. The third phase is what I call the race specific quality, or the for the marathon, that's endurance building phase of training. And that's where you pivot away from the speed and you really hone in on marathon pace and like half marathon pace, or tempo running, as people might be familiar with that term.
And
So
how far is that? For example, those
yep.
workouts, how far is it from the race? Is it 1 month, 2 months away,
Yeah, the
ideally?
really like the final 2 months of training. I would say so like I would say 8 to 10 weeks of
Okay,
training should be what I would call marathon specific. So this is where you're doing your longest long runs,
okay.
your and all your workouts really should be honed in on what's going to be your goal marathon pace, or what you're capable of for marathon pace. So you should be doing a lot of running at marathon pace, and you should be doing running a little bit faster than marathon pace, like around half marathon pace,
Okay.
or what you may know as tempo pace. And this is going to help continue to make marathon pace feel a little bit easier
More
in
comfortable for
relativity to,
races.
yeah.
Okay. Oh,
Yep.
okay. Nice. Makes sense. All right. Thank you. Oh, and we'll still have more phases, right?
Yeah. And then you basically continue doing that endurance specific
Mhm.
work up until about 2 weeks before your marathon.
Okay.
And that's when you begin to taper. So tapering is the fourth phase of marathon training. And tapering is what allows you to really reach your highest level of performance when you do it correctly.
And I know that's kind of like a love-hate relationship with tapering, right? Like
Hmm.
you can like love it, hate it. You become like more insecure. You
Yeah.
feel like more
Yeah.
fatigued, but then you're building more recovery. But
Yeah.
there's like, and also, for example, I guess a molecular level, like cells, they're kind of like patching everything up, like and recovering yourself to make sure that they're ready
Yep.
for racers. So I understand like we might feel like a little bit insecure during that tapering process, but actually at like a cellular level, there's like a lot of happening to make sure that all the fibers and all the muscle cells are like
For
prepared
sure.
for race day, right?
For sure. So something to, for those listening, something to remember is it roughly takes like 10 days to 2 weeks for your body to benefit from any hard workout that you do. Because anytime you do a hard workout or a long run, you're really breaking your body down in that process. And then your body recovers at a cellular level, just like you were saying, Maria. And it takes like up to 2 weeks potentially to go through that stress and recovery process and adaptation to actually get stronger. So we start to taper roughly 2 weeks before your marathon, because none of the runs you do within 2 weeks of the marathon are really going to help improve your fitness. What they will do is they'll help maintain a sense of consistency. You don't want to not run for 2 weeks before a marathon, because then you're going to feel sluggish and like you haven't been doing anything. But if you cut your mileage by about 50% and maintain the same frequency of your runs, you'll get to race day still feeling fresh, but you'll be a lot more recovered because you've been doing a lot less, and your body will actually reach this peak level of fitness that allows you to run your best.
And that's also like very important why to always have like in between workouts have like recovery runs, right? And
Hmm.
going fast like all the time, every treating every single run as a race. I think it's also like a common mistake that we do as runners in the beginning.
Hmm.
We want to run fast and fast and
Hmm.
fast like all the time, right? So we're not really allowing our bodies to recover,
Yeah.
absorb the workout and be ready again for
Yep.
next later on, right?
Yep.
So
You never want to have two hard days in a row. You want to alternate between hard days and very easy days. And then when we think about marathon training, or a marathon pace run, that might be more of like a moderate day. Whereas maybe you're doing a long run at kind of a moderate pace. That's like a marathon specific type run, but never two hard days in a row.
awesome. Did we miss anything from this marathon phases? No, perfect.
Pretty much there. Then you just have your race, which I call the fifth
Racing
phase, your race day performance, and then the post-race recovery, which
and
is
the
the final
recovery.
phase. That's the most important thing. After any marathon, you always want to take 1 to 2 weeks off. I'm a big proponent of taking 2 weeks off, even though that seems like a lot of time for some people. I think it's really helpful and it's going to help you enjoy running long term for hopefully 10 plus years to come. And it's very important to take that rest. Then you can rest, reset, and then if you want to do another marathon 6 months from El Paso, you can kind of go through this process again and hopefully improve and build upon the previous race.
Yeah, perfect. And I know you recommend usually for like taking for half marathon about like 1 week off, right, in general. And then for if it's
Y-
marathon, more like two weeks.
Yeah, half marathon and shorter races, if it's a big goal for you, 1 week. But for a marathon, marathons are tough on our body. And,
Yeah.
it's very common actually for people to either get sick after a marathon or maybe you had a little bit of an injury going into the race or you developed one or maybe there's something under the surface you don't know about. So taking those 2 weeks off I think is really healthy for a lot of reasons. And for me, I always enjoy it as a nice mental break. I think taking that opportunity to focus on other things or just not think about running is really good. And
Yeah.
I always look forward to those breaks.
Yeah, true. And I know I've learned to take like the enjoy those recoveries. I think in my last race from coming from back from Chicago, I know we have like 6 minutes.
Yeah.
I know like races take like a big toll at immune level. And I came
Hmm.
back and I had like this horrible cold. Like my
Yep.
body was just like was just
Very
I guess
common.
overwhelmed. So you gotta take some time to recover. All right.
Yeah.
So I guess, why is easy running so important, Chris? I know we have like 5, 6 more
Hmm.
minutes left, but I guess for that, how much, why is easy running so important,
Yep.
for us in marathon training?
The simplest way to explain it, I think, is just to say that it's better to run more at a slower pace than it is to run less at a faster pace when it comes to marathon training. Marathon training is a test of endurance. You need to, first of all, be able to run 26.2 miles without having to slow down or stop and walk, without getting a cramp or you know, who knows? So there's all sorts of tough things that happen in marathons. All those things have happened to me. You need to be able to run 26.2 miles, first of all. And then if you can do that, then there's the question of how fast can I run 26.2 miles? But really, it's a test of endurance. And people who run more miles in general are going to be faster at the marathon than people who run less miles. So if you only have so much energy over the course of the week, it's better off to run, uh, say every day comfortably than it is to run so hard on one day that then you're sore and you have to take time off, and then you have to run so hard again, like 2 days later, and then take time off, and then you have to run hard again. Uh, you'll just develop less fitness if you take that approach, and you'll be able to run less, and you increase your risk of injury when you do that as well. So there is a time and place for hard workouts, and I touched on those in like the speed development phase and the endurance building specific phase. But when marathon training, about 80% or 90% if you're running even should be very comfortable. Easy pace running again, it should be what we call conversational pace. You should be able to talk pretty normally, not really having to stop in mid-sentence to breathe pretty normally while you're running. In terms of like perceived effort level, I would say um, easy running should be like honestly 3 or 5 out of 10. Like it's 3 to 5 out of 10. It's honestly very easy. Um, in the hot summer, if weather's bad, easy running could feel worse than that. It could feel like a 6 or a 7, but on a nice day, easy running should feel really easy. It should feel like jogging, like a 3 or 4, maybe a 5 out of 10 effort.
So there you go. Slow down on your easy your easy days, right? And I love how you put it. Like it's better to run more easy than run like a little bit fast and fast and fast. And like you say, you really do not develop that fitness level when you're always like running fast. You're gonna, I guess, get stagnant, like when you're always like trying to go fast
Yeah,
every time, right?
Yeah, if anyone's listening to this and they want to train for 800 meters on the track, we can run fast every other day. But when you're training for the marathon, it's all about building that endurance and
It's
taking it slow and steady.
completely different, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess that's it. We only have 3 minutes left for this. So, any last tips? And if you want to invite, I don't know if you're taking any new athletes right now, if you want to invite like people from El Paso to visit your website, your podcast, all your social media, and reach out to you if they want.
Yeah, thanks, Maria. So the best way to get in touch with me and learn more about what I do is go to my website, knightonruns.com, and you can actually download a free audiobook copy of my book, Run Faster Marathons, The Proven Path to PR. You just put in your email address, it'll sign you up for my email list, and I'll send you a free version of my audiobook for you to listen to as you're training more for the El Paso Marathon. And that way you'll stay in touch with me. I send out training tips and advice once a week or so. You can also follow me on Instagram. I'm at Knight on there. And if anyone really enjoyed this conversation and thinks you might vibe with me as a coach, I will be looking for some new athletes to work with one-on-one for the spring. So you can reach out to me through my website or on Instagram and just let me know if you're interested and we can have a conversation about it. And I also do have some training programs as well that are, something you can follow on your own and maybe get a little bit of advice from me here and there if you're just looking for more of like a plan to follow as opposed to full one-on-one coaching like I do with Maria. And that's on my website as well. And I think those are the
Yeah.
best ways to get in touch. So good luck with your training for El Paso.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris, and thank you so much for everyone. And I'll make sure to post like all the links to Chris's websites and information so if you want to reach out to him. All right. Well, thank you so much, Chris, again.
Very welcome. Take care, everyone.